Welcome, everyone. How gratifying to have a full room tonight. Thank you all so very much for coming. My name is Beth Wood, and I am the co-president of the St. Croix Valley chapter of the League of Women Voters. On behalf of the League, I would like to welcome all of you to this candidate meet and greet. The League of Women Voters is a nonpartisan political organization that encourages active and informed participation in our government. Our mission is to empower voters and defend democracy. The National League of Women Voters was established in 1920 after women fought to win the right to vote. Our local chapter formed in 2015. We serve Polk, Burnett, and St. Croix counties. The League does not support or oppose candidates or political parties. We sponsor candidate meet and greets like this one because we believe it is important for voters to have an opportunity to meet candidates in person and learn about their positions on issues before they vote. We welcome our moderator, Jamie Johnson, and we thank you, all of our collaborators, Shelley Tugas, the director of the Hudson Public Library, Nate Skoog with River Channel, the editor of the Star Observer, Jack White, and a special thank you to all of the League of Women Voter of St. Croix Valley members who volunteered here this evening and that organized and are hosting this event. Thank you to our members. Yes. Before we begin, I would just like to remind you that the bathrooms are located near the church office, right on the other side of this wall, out down the hall and behind the kitchen. Water and light refreshments are available after the question and answer portion of this event. We will end the night with a breakout session in which you can find your county supervisor or candidate and visit with them one-on-one and have a conversation. The League has a table outside in the hallway where you can find out more about your county board district and get additional help if you're interested in learning more about the League or more about if you have some voting questions. The spring election is April 7. You can go to myvote.wi.gov to see who your elected officials are, and closer to the election, your ballot will be on there. Now let's welcome our moderator, Jamie Johnson, and he will explain the format of the evening and host our meet and greet. Thank you, Jamie.
Thank you, Beth, and thank you for the League of Women Voters to put this on. It was interesting to hear that you formed the current chapter in 2015, but I have a distinct memory when I ran for state representative 30 years ago in 1996. League of Women Voters put on debates then, but I think St. Croix County must have been combined with Pierce County. And the districts looked a lot different then. Although St. Croix County had 30-some supervisors then, we're now down to 19. So there's been progress there in those 30 years. So tonight is a bit of a different format. I'm used to hosting debates with maybe a couple candidates, but we have candidates from 8 different of the county board supervisor seats. And these are the ones that are basically contested. We don't have both candidates for each of the districts. It was a little difficult, scheduling this, trying to hold it on a night when most could be available. Here's where the fairness comes in from the League of Women Voters, is that those that could not appear here and are not going to get a chance to be on camera, verbally answering 3 of the 7 questions that were handed out. Everyone, including those here and those not here, are going to have the opportunity to answer in writing. So those answers will be submitted in the next week to 8 days. Hopefully everyone can get those in, and then they will get posted. So I want to thank also the people who are here, how incredibly important it is. I think that the League of Women Voters mission is something I 100% support. I like the fact of nonpartisan promotion of our democracy in action. So very much appreciate that and appreciate the church in hosting this. So with that, I'm going to introduce the different candidates that are here. We have 11 present. So from District 2, we have Justin Terbeest and Dani Erickson. Would you please stand? Then next up, we have from District 3, Mitch Rudebush. District 6, we have Paul Adams and Diana Delaney. From District 7, Paul Burning. From District 8, Angie Bose. Did I do that right? All right, good. I didn't rehearse that one with her, so. Then from District 10, Wayne Roan. From District 13, Ryan Shirley and Danielle McIntosh. And from District 15, Rob Lillisby. Those Duolingo lessons are paying off. All right. Now, so I think I did one of these for when we had the 4th District Circuit Court open up, and that was an election back in 2008. So 18 years ago, we had 6 or 7 candidates. This is even larger, and they were all running for one spot. Everyone was asked the same question. We're not going to do that format. This format instead, we just don't have enough time, and this is a 2-part participation. The first is going to be the candidates telling us about themselves, why they're running, and their top 3 priorities in the county board, and then there will be asked questions. Each candidate will be asked 3 questions. All candidates have been given 7 questions that could be asked. They don't know which question they're going to be asked. I don't even know which one they're going to be asked. I've kept it covered up, so I'm going to be reading the question for each candidate. Instead of drawing them out of a hat, we're using 21st century. We used a sequential shuffle method. So for that, and thank you for having that done in advance. I think it'll make it go much smoother. The format is 2 minutes for each round. We're going to have timekeeper. You'll see a yellow card when there's a 30-second, red card when there's a 15-second warning. And when our card holder stands up, that's when the candidate knows they have to stop. Mid-sentence, they're done. And hopefully I don't have to interrupt anyone. I just want to be able to ask questions. The other thing that you will see is I've instructed each of the candidates, they know who they're going after. We're going to start on this side of the room for every round, and so you know who you're sitting next to. Just when that person comes up and starts talking, please come up and stand next to them. Then that way we keep this moving. Because we want to get to the second part. After the verbal question rounds are done, then we're going to get to the meet and greet. And that's where the audience gets to participate. You get to go up and talk to your particular district person. I guess there's 4 incumbents here, but we have challengers as well. So you can ask the candidates questions yourselves. We are not having questions from the floor just because we're doing this, again, in advance. It's in this random method. So with that, is there any questions from any of the candidates on the format? Audience participation, again, you will have your chance to talk to the candidates at the end. What we're asking is that everyone refrain from applause or cheering or anything audible, just because it's A, distracting, and B, it just takes up time. We want to keep this moving along because we do want to try and be done by 7 o'clock for the different questions. And if we're done sooner than that, that gives you more opportunity then to talk to each of the candidates one-on-one. And obviously, I hope I wouldn't have to say that this is a meet and greet, so it's going to be addressing issues. The candidates are not going to be responding to each other, and that's very important. It's kind of like when I'm a lawyer by trade, and so when I'm in the court, the judge does not like it when the lawyers start talking to each other. You address the court. And the same thing here, the candidates are to address us at the table and the audience, but not each other. All right, understood? All right, enough said. Well, with that, I want to, again, thank you for being here, and we will get started with each candidate has been asked to tell something about their background, their qualifications, why they're running, and then the top 3 priorities, and they have to do that in 2 minutes. All right? So with that, Mr. Terbeest, you're up first, and Ms. Erickson, you're on deck.
Good evening, everyone. Well, we'll just do this. My name's Justin Terbeest. I have lived in Wisconsin about almost near half my life now. Was born and raised on a small dairy farm in southern Minnesota, right near the tri-state area. Graduated, went to college at Luther, majored in political science, religion, history, got my law degree in the cities, and have been practicing as an attorney since my early 20s. But I think a lot of you in this room probably know me from the business I used to run and still kind of do in the area, Hop and Barrel Brewing in downtown. So I had a little adventure with that, still working with Liftbridge to keep it going, and my family and I settled in the area in about 2004 and moved to Somerset in 2014. Since then, getting involved locally in neighborhood, community events, politics has been something I've been kind of vying to do most of my adult life. I grew up with a dad who was very active in town board politics. I think he finally gave it up about 10 years ago, but he spent about 30 years working in the town board from chair to different things like that, doing a lot of the same work as it would translate, maintaining the roads, making sure runoff issues are handled, supporting in a very, very rural area the farms and what they want to do for expansion. So in some ways, I kind of grew up around this type of work, this nonpartisan, a chance to help your neighbors. But sorry, I didn't even get to the 3 issues. I have no basis for this. I would say the 3 biggest things that I see are affordability for our county, managing natural resources, and housing. I think affordability a lot of times gets caught up in taxes, but there's a lot more to it. It's government expenditures, it's how money gets utilized, same with natural resources. The one thing I want to point out is I think we don't realize how beautiful of an area we have. I'll keep it short, but I have seen all of the state, and we are gifted here and should be taking advantage of our parks more.
All right, thank you. Ms. Erickson, you're up next, and Mr. Rudebish, you're on deck.
Shut it off.
Hi, my name is Dani Erickson, and I live just north of Somerset in the township. As a small business owner, school board member, and a mom of 4, I've seen firsthand how local government decisions affect families, schools, and businesses in our community. I have a degree in political science and economics, and that interest in public policy led me to serve on the Somerset School Board. School boards are responsible for policy, finance, and hiring and evaluating the superintendent, responsibilities that are actually very similar to the role of a county board supervisor. I enjoy understanding how local government works and how policy decisions affect our communities. On the school board, I've worked to make sure we stay informed about legislation that impacts our district, so we can make thoughtful decisions. During my time on the board, we've hired a new superintendent, and I've focused on asking strong finance questions to ensure transparency for taxpayers. Looking ahead, my top 3 priorities for the county board would be: first, working collaboratively with other supervisors to keep St. Croix County an affordable place to live, work, and raise a family. That starts with responsible budgeting and keeping taxes as low as possible. Second, ensuring we have thoughtful local discussions about major developments like solar farms, data centers, and CAFOs. These decisions have long-term impacts on our communities, and I strongly believe local voices and local control should guide those conversations. Third, making sure county government respects and protects the constitutional rights of the people it serves. Counties operate under state authority, but they still have a responsibility to uphold the constitutional protections that affect everyday interactions with local government. Ultimately, I believe good local government comes down to responsible budgeting, thoughtful planning, and protecting the rights of the people we serve. Thank you.
Thank you. Next up from District Number 3, Mr. Rudebush.
I'm a little more old school than the previous one, so I got notes. Keep me on track. I'm Mitch Rude. First of all, I want to thank a few people. I want to thank the League of Women Voters for having this. This is awesome. I want to thank Peg for helping me out. I think when she signed up, she didn't think she was going to sign up to be the campaign manager for 10 different campaigns, but that's what she ended up doing. So, Peg, thanks very much. And I want to thank my wife, Chris, who talked me into this. So here I go. I'm Mitch Rudebush. I've lived in District 3 for about 15 years. My wife, Chris, I have 2 children, grown children. Taggart is a 20-year-old, almost 21-year-old sophomore at Eau Claire. My youngest, Jagger, is a freshman at South Dakota School of Mines studying mechanical engineering, which is what I studied. I'm a retired Army colonel, served in the Army for 27 years. I have a Bachelor of Science in Mechanical Engineering and a Master's in Leadership and Management. So I've served my country for 27 years, and this is just a continuation of that in my mind. So that's why I want to serve. After 27 years of uniform and continued service in the Department of the Army, I believe leadership is about listening, building consensus, solving problems in a way that helps everyone succeed. I'm running for county board because I care deeply about protecting our land, our water, holy cow, that's quick, strengthening our communities, and ensuring county government works for all the people that live here. 3 priorities are protecting land and water, responsible growth and planning, and investing in strong communities and services. Thank you.
Very good. Thank you very much. From District 6, Paul Adams.
Hello, good evening. I'm Paul Adams, and I'm the incumbent for District 6. I was born and raised in Pasadena, California, and through the Naval ROTC, was commissioned as a Marine Corps officer for 27 years, 7 months. I came here to St. Croix Valley in 2004 and started living in Prescott. In 2013, my wife Lori and I moved here to Hudson, and we've enjoyed it ever since. I've been on the board for 2 terms, and I'm running for a 3rd term. My top 3 items would be fiscal consistency. We must have that so that our leadership within the county can plan, so that they can go forth and get grants, which we've been very aggressive doing, and make plans for the future. Second, public safety. When you have public safety, the citizens can go about their lives in a normal manner, do good things, and other people recognize that, and they want to come and live here also. Third, infrastructure maintenance and improvement. If you don't have good roads, good buildings, good infrastructure that support growth, that support a good lifestyle, a lot of things don't work thereafter. I've enjoyed my time on the board. I've enjoyed the camaraderie, and I hope to be reelected for a 3rd term for the St. Croix County Board. Thank you.
Thank you. Next up, Diana Delaney, also from District 6.
Yes, hello, I am Diana Delaney, and I have been a resident of Hudson for over 30 years. And what's really fun is my family have been residents of St. Croix County for over 100 years. And so with that, I basically have learned the values of hard work and community stewardship through the work that I do as a Social Security disability attorney, and I want to continue to ensure that our county becomes and continues to be a great place for our children and grandchildren can thrive. And so as a practicing Social Security disability attorney, my career is dedicated to helping others navigate the complex, often intimidating bureaucracy of government systems. I help people get the support they are entitled to during their most difficult moments. So whether I'm working with the Social Security Administration, my professional mission is to cut through red tape, find clarity, and secure results for those I represent. I want to bring that same dedication and advocacy to the county board. My priorities: a strong safety net. With potential shifts in federal funding for health and human services, we need leadership. that understands how to restructure services, unfortunately, this might happen, to protect the most vulnerable. I will advocate for strengthening volunteer-led programs like CASA and working with the ADRC. Second, we want to look at water for the future. Our groundwater is our most vital asset. I'm committed to practical data-based solutions to enjoy our drinking water and make sure that our recreational waters remain clean for everyone to enjoy. And then stewarding our parks. I think living in District 6, one of the greatest assets that we have in the city of Hudson is going to the county parks. And so I just want to prioritize the sustainable improvement of our parks to ensure that they remain inclusive and accessible for every resident of St. Croix County. Thank you.
Thank you. Next up from District 7, Paul Burney.
Well, good evening. Thank you for having me here. So a little bit about me. I'm married to my wife, Brianne. So we have 4 children. Our children are one's in Madison right now. Actually, a finalist to be the drum major for the UW marching band, which is really cool. We have a senior at the high school, and we have a sophomore at the high school, and then our daughter, who came in last, but she is, and I know you had her at your school. So anyway, we've been in the Hudson area since 2012. I've lived in St. Croix County most of my life, minus a short stint in Russia during the early 1990s, right after the Soviet Union fell. And that really shaped the lookout that I have, politically and also for our country, seeing what that country was coming out of, especially when my parents were detained as we were leaving the country, and I was handed 4 plane tickets. Call your Uncle Collect when you get to Chicago to come pick you up. So that kind of stuff has really shaped, those experiences have shaped my life and my outlook. A couple things that we've accomplished since I've been on the board. One, we restored the library funding to 100%, which was a mission. The Hudson Area Library was not at 100% county funding. As a matter of fact, it was the only library in the county system that was docked 30% of the county funding. So my top 3 priorities are, one, to make sure that I could go on with some things that we've accomplished, but one, the jail is coming up. It does need to be expanded, but a $46 million price tag is not it, and there are things we can do with a consortium. Second thing is cybersecurity. It's exposed statewide. Counties need to have a place where we can go to and have one managed ecosystem there. And then last but not least is making sure that land use and zoning continue to be easy to use, but not easy to mess up the land around it. So thank you for your time.
All right. Next up from District 8, Angie Bose.
Hi, I'm Angie Bose. I've only lived in the Hudson area for about 9 years now. We moved out to the town of Hudson, wanted to make a good choice for a more rural area to bring our kids. We used to live on the other side of the state, so we're Packer fans. But we just wanted to come over this way. My husband has parents over here, and we wanted to be closer to family. One of the reasons we chose St. Croix County in particular was because we are hunters, bikers, hikers, and all the outdoor things. And St. Croix County in particular, the Hudson area, has amazing outdoor resources. Actually, the whole St. Croix County has amazing outdoor resources. And so that was a very particular choice about why we wanted to move here. One of the things that we have really noticed in the last 9 years is there's a lot of spicy topics that continue to come up in our county. And some of them we should pay attention to, and some of them we won't really have much say in. However, the things that we do have a say in, we should have strong opinions on. And you should have a representative that listens to you, even if you may not share the same perspective on it. Because everyone deserves representation at the county level, regardless if you agree. And we should be able to have civil debate and discourse on these topics. So the 3 things, I should say, I come from a wide variety of my backgrounds. I was a probation and parole agent for a number of years. Most recently, I have been in research and research leadership at a large multinational mortgage brokerage for a few years. And I use a lot of data in my job. I always have. My undergrad is psych, and my master's is in business. So I have a pretty broad range of the things I've been doing. Getting back to the top 3 things, groundwater and land, town of Hudson, Those are going to be big issues this year. I want to make sure we take care of those, keeping our groundwater clean and making sure we're doing well testing, making sure we have affordable housing opportunities in the county, supporting those within the towns and the cities that have the ownership of those decisions, as well as making sure we are practicing fiscal responsibility and making sure that your taxes don't increase more than your other cost of living. So thank you.
Thank you. Next up, from District 10, Wayne Rowan.
Good evening. My name is Wayne Rowan. I live in the city of River Falls in southern St. Croix County with my wife of 40 years, who's here with me tonight. We raised our 4 daughters here in the Midwest, and today we're fortunate to have grandchildren nearby who we get to see regularly. Family and community have always been central to my life, and in that sense, that connection is a big part of why I'm running for the county board. I grew up on a small family farm in North Dakota where I learned the values of hard work, responsibility, and stewardship of the land. I continue to be an avid outdoorsman, enjoy camping, canoeing the boundary waters, kayaking the Kinney, ATVing the beautiful trails of Wisconsin, and snowmobiling when the snow cooperates, which it has not this year. I was the first in my family to attend college, eventually earning degrees in engineering and business, and I spent more than 40 years in professional and executive roles in engineering, marketing, and business management. Along the way, I developed environmental monitoring technology and hold several patents in that field. My career required careful analysis, collaborative problem solving, and thoughtful decision-making, skills I believe are directly relevant to local government. Looking ahead, I believe the county board should focus on 3 key priorities. First, ensuring county government operates efficiently, transparently, and responsibly for all residents. Second, protecting the natural resources, especially land and water that make St. Croix County such a special place to live. And third, strengthening community services and recreation opportunities, including parks and trails that support both quality of life and economic vitality. Thank you.
Thank you. Next up, from District 13, Ryan Shirley.
Hi, I'm Ryan Shirley. I'm an incumbent from District 13. I've lived in St. Croix County most of my life. I grew up in Hudson, moved to college in Arizona for 4 years, and then back here to New Richmond. I'm married, have my wife Jenny, 2 kids. I really enjoy my time on the board. A lot of time in the last couple of years dealing with these issues that you brought up. It's been a little busier than it has been in the past. But I'm a business owner. I own a commercial construction company, a partner in a different company as well. I currently serve on the administration committee and the community development committee. My 3 topics or issues that I think are the most important right now is your size and effectiveness of government, a strong community development department, and keep St. Croix County competitive and attractive for families and businesses to move into. That being probably the most important, I think, in our area right now. You see a lot of data out there saying that we're going to shrink and we're not going to grow as fast as we are. I don't know if I necessarily agree with that, but we need to make sure that St. Croix County is still ready and competitive to get more people, usually from the Minnesota side, as they continue to do what they do over there, and we continue to make it great over here. Thank you.
Also from District 13, Danielle McIntosh.
Hi, everyone. I'm Danielle McIntosh. I'm from District 13 in New Richmond, which has been my home for the last 10 years. I'm a physical therapist. I work at the hospital in town. So I work in town, I live in town, I care about our town. Being a physical therapist means that my day job is literally to help my neighbors and greater community members feel better, move better, and function better. Being a physical therapist, I can bring my compassion, my creativity, and my critical thinking to the county board. My top 3 priorities are to continue to provide strong community services within St. Croix County. So to me, that means things like making sure that we continue to fund the health center, making sure that we continue to fund the ADRC and all of the really great resources that they provide. It's been a great resource for me personally as a physical therapist. I also care about preserving our natural resources. I've gotten really into gardening since we bought our house. I'm trying to tackle the buckthorn on our back hill, plant new native prairie plants, and prevent erosion along a creek bank. That, but then also being mindful of our drinking water, and I know that we're going to talk a lot more about that tonight, so we're not going to spend any time on that. But then finally, just being fiscally responsible. You know, nobody likes paying taxes, but they do provide us with a lot of really great services. So making sure that we're really considering how we're using those tax dollars, and making sure that we're prioritizing what our community prioritizes. Thanks.
Thank you. And then from District 15, Rob Lillisby.
Hello, I'm Rob Lillisby. Nice job on the pronunciation. 3 accents, one after the third L, and one after the S, and one after the final E. Well, I have been a resident of St. Croix County for some 20 some odd years. When my then wife and I were looking to raise a family, we jumped the border from Minnesota. So I'm a native Minnesotan who grew up in the Twin City area, attended school in Duluth, and then, like I say, some 27 years, or 24 years ago, excuse me, we came to St. Croix County, specifically Roberts. Beautiful little village. Traveling through the town, going to my mother-in-law's place, we saw a nice house, a nice little rambler in what I would describe of a 1970s suburb-looking area. And it was a done deal. We were going to be there. My credentials, aside from being a father, an active father, and having 3 children, one is attending college in Menominee this year, first year. My youngest is my rooting section in the audience, and she's a junior at St. Croix Central. And our eldest is a special needs type gal. She has autism, fairly severe, so I've been an advocate for that for the past 20 odd years too. Professionally, I've worked in healthcare and housing for the majority of my time. And I have a master's in business, specifically health services. My 3 issues that I'm not stealing them from anyone either, is public safety and protecting the most vulnerable among us, the soil and water conservation and keeping everything good for us to be healthy, and fiscal responsibility. I know they sound like throwaways, but they're a big umbrella under each one, so that's it.
All right.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right. That concludes the introduction portion, and now we will move on to the rounds of questions. And again, these are random, so everyone will have 3 different questions to answer, but in the same round, the same question may pop up with different candidates. All right, so Justin, your first question is, how would you address potential cuts to federal funding for healthcare and social services?
I think this is going to be a very big issue moving forward for every level of government. I think it's one that a lot of us need to educate ourselves on more, both people coming into the office and people already there, because from what I understand, we don't know where all the cuts will be, what programs they'll be applied to. Sometimes there may be discretion with a policymaking board like this to shift where those costs could be cut. Other times it's going to be more on the executive, and we're just providing policy guidelines. So it's difficult to answer that more specifically, but it is a reality that this board, that many local school boards are already facing. As we know, that's why it leads to decisions with schools being closed right across. Obviously, that's happening in Hudson right now, and it's a massive issue facing Washington County just across the border. So it's something we have to be prepared for. We have to look at the most needed programs, the ones that provide the best bang for the buck, the ones that are most utilized. But it also needs to be balanced with shifts coming. We know population is going to be changing the county. decisions like this need to be made with long-term awareness, not a short-term, let's shore this program up. Let's look what programs are going to be needed in the next 5, 10, 15, 20 years. Because when you have massive decisions like this, you cannot make them quickly. You need to look at the population dynamics, what health needs are going to be made, what the trends are. So it's going to be, I think, one of the biggest challenges of the incoming board, and probably the next 2 or 3 boards that we're going to have to address, educate ourselves, both on the board and the public as a whole, of what those options are. So, thank you.
Thank you. Also from District 2, Dani Erickson. And your question is, there are several concentrated animal feeding operations, known by its acronym CAFOs, in St. Croix County. Many have applied to expand the number of livestock with the DNR. What is your position with regard to CAFOs?
I would say that my position on this issue is that I already spoke to it before, but I think the county should have as much local control as possible. I was at the community development meeting on February 19th, and I appreciated Sue Curtis's public comment on this issue. And then following Supervisor Carrie Rice, following up on that with a suggestion to present a resolution to lobby Wisconsin legislators that this be brought back to the local level. Overall, after doing research, I prefer that CAFOs have a limit of 1,800 animals. Large CAFOs can draw water from people's wells, and they can also encourage disease. Water is our most precious resource, which people have already spoken to this evening, and we have to protect that. Storage of manure in concrete containers can also leak into groundwater, so that needs to be monitored. And I think there's a balance between supporting agriculture in our county while also protecting our water, our neighbors, and the long-term health of our rural communities. Thank you.
Thank you. Next up from District 3, Mr. Rudebush, your question is, the land and water conservation staff have identified the primary source of contamination of ground and surface waters as excessive nitrates found in manure and chemicals used on cropland. What measures should the county take to inform and protect residents from the harmful effects of excessive nitrates? How would you encourage preservation of individuals' safe well water and farmland for agricultural use in this county?
I think your question was 2 minutes, so is
Yeah.
that part of my...
I agree. I gotta take a drink of water.
Good thing I took notes. I'm going to stick to them this time so I don't go over my time. Yeah, clean drinking water is not political. It's fundamental to the public health and future of our county. Many residents rely on private wells, as I do. So groundwater contamination from nitrates is something we have to take seriously. I support expanding well testing programs, public education and conservation programs that help farmers reduce nutrient runoff. We should also invest in the county's land and water conservation programs, which work directly with farmers for practical solutions. The goal is to protect drinking water while helping agriculture remain strong and sustainable for future generations. Thank you.
Right. Thank you. Because I'm facing towards the mic, and I don't have a microphone other than for the taping, I'll try to speak loudly, all right? And they're working on getting another microphone, but all right. So, Paul, your question for the first round is, what can the county board do to assist local, town, and village boards and city councils as they seek to provide not only affordable housing, but also a variety of housing options in their municipalities?
The county looks to let the local municipalities work with developers to build housing and growth within their cities and their municipalities. Counties will watch what's going on, but the goal is to not overregulate and not provide barriers to providing housing. Just today, went down and got gas at the Roberts exit, the Quick Trip. You look north there, a lot of new housing that is coming into the Roberts area. Same thing right here in Hudson. The county is watching what's going on, but the cities and municipalities are the ones who will take the lead and work with the developers to provide for housing here in St. Croix County. The less overregulation and hands in the pie or in the kitchen, the better things will be. Local communities and cities can work with that and provide growth in housing for St. Croix County.
Thank you. All right. Now, maybe this is better. You folks can hear all more? All right.
I can hear better.
All right. So, Diana, your question is, Xcel Energy has proposed a large solar facility on nearly 3,000 acres in central St. Croix County. Projects of this size are under the jurisdiction of the Public Utility Commission of Wisconsin. What role do you feel the county should play in this project?
Well, that's a very loaded question. I think we all know that. First of all, I don't think the county is going to control what type of power source. That would be something that's negotiated between the state and Xcel Energy. However, a very important thing that the county can do is to protect itself. And I believe that that is in the works at this time for an agreement. And this agreement would allow, if there's an issue, let's say with a fence, and the fence is not being built correctly, or with the view, and people are complaining, this would allow the county to go directly to Xcel, directly to Xcel and resolve the issue that way, instead of having to go to Madison and go through litigation, which costs money, time, and doesn't get really quick results, which we do need in this situation. So, thank you. Good luck with that.
Yeah, thank you.
All right. Paul Burning, your question for round one is, St. Croix County has grown in population in recent decades, driven in large part by our proximity to the Twin Cities. Over the next decade, growth is expected to flatten and potentially decline. What are the impacts of this shift in population as it relates to our county?
All right, so you want just how it's impacted or what we're gonna do about it? No, I'm just kidding. So what happens is in the state of Wisconsin, back in about 03, 04, levy limits were put in place based on net new construction. So if we're not having people move into the area, build houses, build commercial buildings and go on the tax base, we actually can't increase the tax levy overall. So you hear like the mill rate and you hear like equalized value, you hear all these different buzzwords that are thrown out. But if we're not having buildings built and we're not having houses built, our tax base can't increase. So 19 supervisors have to come together. And if we do end up having a flat or decreasing, or we have properties that start falling off the tax rolls, that is going to impact how much money we bring in. And so there's a couple of different ways that you can look at this. One, you can go to the state and say, please, Madison, remember that the westernmost part of Wisconsin needs you too. You could do that. Or there's also the option of asking the state to rescind levy limits and go to more of a CPI type, the ability to increase taxes that way, which I think most of my neighbors would probably boot me out of office if I advocated for that. And then the third way is we have to find efficiencies and leverage technology that's available out there so that when we have vacancies in positions, find ways to allow technology to fit in there, just like we're doing out at the parks right now. So at the parks, the community development team and the community development director found that it was very difficult to fill roles during the summer to do admittance in the parks. So what did he do? Jason, our community development director, found technologies that allow like auto entrance and auto pay and remote or electronic pay in order to enter the parks. So solutions like that are what are going to be needed if we do end up having that and if our tax base doesn't grow.
All right. Thank you. Next question. It's a different question. We haven't had the same question yet, but it will happen. All right. So Angie Bowes, your question for the first round is, in the next year, the county will consider expansion of the jail and other infrastructure projects, expected at a cost of $46 million. If passed, this would result in a bond issue to the taxpayers. What is your position on the proposed expansion of the jail and infrastructure improvements?
I just knew it was going to be this one, by the way. So I'm a previous probation and parole agent, and if y'all remember back when Scott Walker was governor, we had a lot of shortages within the budget. We had to change the way we worked, and we had to do some changing of our caseloads. So one of the things that I think about with the jail in particular is, yes, the infrastructure does need to be improved, but we also need to take careful consideration into the size of the jail that we want to have, the folks that we're keeping in jail, as well as like alternative methods for things like GPS and home monitoring for nonviolent offenders. We also need to consider that we're on the 94 corridor, so we have a lot of traffic and drug violators as well. Lots of the court hearings are happening from out of state. We also recently, and keep me honest on this one, but we did send a request for an additional municipal court judge. So my anticipation is that that is going to speed up court cases, maybe meaning that we won't have people who are unable to afford their bonds in jail for shorter periods of time. So we need to look at this as not just a next year problem, but a 5 to 10 year problem, and where are we planning on going there? My goal is that we would actually be incarcerating less nonviolent offenders and using the space that we have in a responsible manner. I think that's it.
All right, thank you. All right. Wayne Roan, your first round question, how would you address potential cuts to federal funding for healthcare and social services? You got the short question instead of the long question.
We'll try to keep a short answer.
Okay.
So potential reductions in federal funding for healthcare and social services would create real challenges for counties because local governments often deliver many of these programs directly to the residents. In St. Croix County, services such as public health programs, mental health support, elder services, and assistance for vulnerable families depend in part on federal and state funding partnerships. If those resources decline, the county board will need to respond thoughtfully and strategically. The first step is to clearly understand where the federal funds are supporting county services and what the potential impacts of reductions might be. Good data and transparent communication with the public will be essential so residents understand which programs may be affected and why. Second, we should work closely with state agencies, neighboring counties, and local nonprofit organizations to look for collaborative solutions. Many health and social service challenges, such as mental health care, addiction treatment, elder support, are best addressed through coordinated regional efforts rather than isolated programs. Finally, we need to prioritize services carefully. Counties have a responsibility to protect the most essential services that support public health, safety, and most importantly, vulnerable residents. My approach would be pragmatic, evaluate the impacts honestly, seek efficiencies where possible, advocate for fair funding, and ensure that the county continues to provide critical services that help maintain a healthy and resilient community.
Thank you. Next up, Ryan Shirley, your first round question is a long one. Okay. The land and water conservation staff have identified the primary source of contamination of ground and surface waters as excessive nitrates found in manure and chemicals used on cropland. What measures should the county take to inform and protect residents from the harmful effects of excessive nitrates? And how would you encourage preservation of individuals' safe well water and farmland for agricultural use in this county?
That's a long question, and that would require a much longer answer than I can give here. But yes, clean water. Obviously, everybody wants clean water in their drinking waters coming from their wells or their cities, and we should. The Land and Water Conservation staff presented us on community development just what was asked about contamination for nitrates. And there's a few things that go into that. A lot of it is how the soil and the water in each particular area, or the soil and runoff is handled in those different areas, which is why you see higher nitrates in the areas between Roberts and Hammond. It's a little bit different soils in that area. Plus, we don't have the crop rotation that we have in the rest of the county. So that does make a difference. But we do a really good job. The community development department does of water testing, and I will commend them on that. They have done a long-standing testing there. They have lots of great data. They know the trends. They know what's happening. So continuing that, I think, is important. And continuing our free water testing is important so that people know what's actually in their wells. Is there an easy answer for what to do about the higher nitrates? No. There really isn't. As we know, the lower that we dig wells, the better they are as you get into that lower aquifer. But can residents afford a lower well that deep to really get to that? No, it's not cost effective. So it really is a big issue that we need to address a little more.
All right, thank you. Danielle McIntosh, your first round question is, what can the county board do to assist local town and village boards and city councils as they seek to provide not only affordable housing, but also a variety of housing options in their municipalities?
Well, I think we all know this is a really complex topic, and I'm certainly not qualified to speak in depth about it. But the St. Croix Economic Development Corporation did an in-depth study in 2025 about the current status of our housing market and the current gaps in our housing market. The biggest takeaway that I had from that study is that it's a multifactorial answer that we need, and it's going to be different in different regions. So, given the complexity and the enormity of the task at hand, I think that the county's role is really to provide support to our local municipalities, making sure that they have the resources and the support to tackle their local problems, whatever they may be. Another thing that kind of came up in the study was having straightforward building codes and efficient permit processes so that builders can actually kind of move forward with projects. That seems like something that the county could provide guidance on and probably already does. Another piece that I found interesting was the missing middle housing. So the buildings with 2 to 16 units in them that tend to blend in a little bit better, so you don't get as much of that not in my backyard attitude from local residents to address some of those issues. And I'll tell you, I liked living in a walkable neighborhood. When I lived in Madison, it was awesome to be able to just walk down the street and get to everything that I needed. New Richmond is not like that. I love my house. I love my neighborhood. But we do have the opportunity in District 13 to have a walkable neighborhood if enough of those stakeholders get together and decide that that's something that can happen. Thank you.
All right, thank you. And Rob Lillisby, your first round question is, Xcel Energy has proposed a large solar facility on nearly 3,000 acres in central St. Croix County. Projects of this size are under the jurisdiction of the Public Utility Commission of Wisconsin. What role do you feel the county should play in this project?
Well, I think that the county is doing quite well with coming up with the concept of the agreement. I'm all for it because the county, from I'm a novice at this, but from what I've learned, the county is fairly restricted in what they can say is going to happen or not happen regarding this. So that being said, how could the impact be minimized, and how could the county be protected if something like this is going to be happening, which it likely will to some degree? The joint development agreement can help ensure, now I look at my notes, that the county, it's kind of a negotiation where you're putting a lot of the earnest on Xcel to do what they should be doing. And we are doing, the board will protect the county by this agreement. Environmental safety can be pointed out in there, inspections, monitoring, maintenance, all these things could be included in the JDA. Also, infrastructure needs can be addressed. Do roads have to be maintained? Who's going to be paying for it? Emergency access to locations, et cetera, et cetera. Community benefits. What does the community get out of it besides a whole lot of traffic, a whole lot of noise for a while, and whatnot? Timelines of construction, everything from the get-go to the end game, and when decommissioning's happening. I'm not against solar. Actually, I have some solar panels on my house. But this is a sizable project, and it has to be considered wisely, and I think that the board is doing quite well by approaching it with a JDA.
All right, thank you. So we are halfway through our format because we have 2 questions for each candidate left. Thank goodness we only have 11 instead of 12. All right, so Justin Terbeest, your second question is St. Croix County has grown in population in recent decades, driven in large part by our proximity to the Twin Cities. Over the next decade, growth is expected to flatten and potentially decline. What are the impacts of this shift in population as it relates to the county?
I mean, it impacts everything. As was, I know we're not supposed to comment on what other people said, but obviously that will be a huge impact on the county's ability to raise funds. It should impact almost every decision the county makes that has reach beyond who's ever on the board at that point. Because those are the types of decisions that are going to be long-reaching, are going to create fiscal problems if those aren't considered now. If we're going to invest in a massive jail project, and correct me if I'm wrong in the math, but that's 40,000 households, every $1 million we spend, it's $25 to $30 per household. A $46 million project is just shy of $1,200 per house. That's one project. And now if there's a fourth that many houses, we can't even raise taxes to pay for it. How are we supposed to make these decisions without considering that? So yes, we can do things to try to increase the population, draw people in, and those should be going on, but we need to be making decisions now based on the reality we know we're going to be facing.
All right.
Thank you.
Thank you for your answer. Now, next up is Dani Erickson. And your second question is, in the next year, the county will consider expansion of the jail and other infrastructure projects expected to cost $46 million. If passed, this would result in a bond issue to the taxpayers. What is your position on the proposed expansion of the jail and infrastructure improvements?
I think we need to take a careful look before committing taxpayers to a $46 million expansion. That is a big investment, and we should fully understand what's driving the need for additional jail space before moving forward. I'd like to see a clear breakdown of the jail population, particularly how many addressed are related to mental health issues. If significant portions of inmates are struggling with mental health challenges, jail may not be the most effective solution. I think before doubling the size of the jail, we should make sure we're addressing the root causes and using taxpayer dollars in the most responsible and effective way possible. I think we owe it to taxpayers to make sure we're solving the right problem and spending their money wisely. Thank you.
Thank you. Mitch Rudebush. You weren't expecting such a short answer, right?
I wasn't, but I'm expecting
She
a
was to
long
the point.
question.
Thank you for your brevity. Well, we're gonna get this on schedule after all, so. All right, your question is, how would you address potential cuts to federal funding for healthcare and social services?
I was afraid you're going to ask that question because I prepared for 6 answers, and that was the one I missed. So I did my quick research while I was sitting there with lovely AI, and they gave me an answer. I'm not going to give it to you because you all can do the same thing that I just did. But what I will do on any issues when I'm elected is do the proper research and understand what the concerns are for the people, the constituents, what the concerns are for the county, what the costs are, and how to bring all that together in a nonpartisan and worked with the board members on all items. But I'm going to bring that research to the board. I'm going to do my due diligence. I'm not doing this just to say as on county board. I'm doing this to help everyone in the county. And that's what I'm going to do for you and everyone in the county if I'm elected. Thank you.
Thank you. Paul Adams, your second question is, there are several concentrated animal feeding operations, CAFOs, in St. Croix County. Many have applied to expand the number of livestock with the DNR. What is your position with regard to CAFOs?
There are approximately 5 to 6 CAFO operations in the county. The state of Wisconsin, the U.S. Environmental Protection Agency, and the county all have a hand in ensuring that various pollution controls and regulations are being met. Our community development works with the CAFO operators to ensure that management of the waste is done properly and effectively. The bottom line is, those properties stay there and they continue to produce waste. And short of moving them somewhere else, they're going to continue. So we need to ensure that all regulations are being followed. We need to ensure that those residents who are nearby, who might be impacted by detrimental water quality, smell, and noise, are being taken care of. And then as new ones come in, which I was looking to bring some of those operations up here, and we definitely make a determination on if they are coming, where, and all the regulations are being followed, so we don't bring problems from somewhere else up here to St. Croix County.
Thank you. Diana Delaney, you have the long question. The Land and Water Conservation staff have identified the primary source of contamination of ground and surface waters as excessive nitrates found in manure and chemicals used on cropland. What measures should the county take to inform and protect residents from these harmful effects? And how would you encourage preservation of individuals' safe well water and farmland for agricultural use in this county?
So thank you. So first, we need to be honest about the data. The current studies show that our county faces real challenges regarding water quality. The nitrate levels, approximately 12% of wells in St. Croix County exceed the EPA drinking water standard for nitrates. Forever chemicals, PFAS, well, recent studies of 63 wells did not find levels exceeding current standards. Less than 1% of the 17,000 wells in our county have been tested for these chemicals. We need more data. Hidden contaminants. Most pollutants have no taste, no odor, or color, and we can't manage what we have not measured. So I do believe that we do need to expand testing accessibility. I support the continuation and expansion of free well water nitrate screening clinics. These are widely advertised on the county board website. There needs to be data-driven solutions. I advocate for further PFA and groundwater studies. We need support for homeowners and helping residents navigate so that they can get their water to the state-certified laboratories. And also, very importantly, I think people need to know that when they're drawing their water sample, they should watch the YouTube video on how to do it so that it's a good sample and they get the best results. And also just protecting the source. We have to work with our land and water conservation teams. And we all need to work on keeping our water pure and clean. So, thank you.
Thank you. Paul Burning, your second question. What can the county board do to assist local town and village boards and city councils as they seek to provide not only affordable housing, but a variety of housing options in their municipalities?
Yeah, so I think we've watched over the last couple of years the community development committee and the community development department streamlining and making it a lot easier for the permitting process to build homes and pull those permits and what they need. So kudos to them. I think a lot of it has to do with looking at today. So obviously today, houses are way more expensive than they were a long time ago. But if you really look at, and I always go to like 3rd Street because those are such beautiful homes downtown Hudson. Those homes were built in the early part of the 20th century and some of them in the late part of the 19th century. And the amount of like red tape and inspections and onerous regulations that go into building a house today, my kids range in age from 19 to 14, they have no hope of home ownership anytime in the next 10 to 20 years. It is out of reach. And so what can we do? We can find ways to like really help the process be a lot more smoother, much more smooth for builders to be able to build homes for young people, for whoever needs one. I mean, we bought our house in 2019, and thank God we bought our house when we did, because we would not be able to afford it if we bought it today. So it goes beyond just county board sitting in this seat, one of the 19. It's everything that local municipalities all the way up to the federal government and access to raw materials. It's a hodgepodge of bad decisions, tough to access materials. As a matter of fact, raw materials for hot mix. People don't want gravel pits in their backyard. So the less we have of those, the higher demand we have on what is available, that causes the cost to go up. So my time is up.
Right. Angie Bose, your second question is, Xcel Energy has proposed a large solar facility on nearly 3,000 acres in central St. Croix County. Projects of this size are under the jurisdiction of the PUC of Wisconsin. What role do you feel the county should play in this project?
I actually love this question because I'm a huge proponent of clean energy. And I think this project is actually, it's not a farm, right? There's a lot more that goes into a project of this size than just getting a few solar panels put on your roof. There's going to be extensive drilling. We have, I attended one of the county board meetings where we had a soil scientist come in and talk about just the soil we have in the area. 3,000 acres is huge. After that county board meeting, I actually went out and drove some of the properties that they're talking about just to see how expansive it would be. And I really heavily support personal property rights. It's your property, you do what you want. However, this isn't just affecting the owner's property. This is going to affect the entire communities and the places where these solar farms are going in. So for me, my perspective is that the county board should do what it can. And it has two roles to my understanding. One is intervener and one is the joint development agreement. As an intervener, we say, no, we don't want it. And we can take that approach, or we can say, it's not our decision, so we're going to get what we want out of it. And that's the joint development agreement, and I believe that's the perspective we should be taking, and the board is actually taking at this point in time, or at least talking about it. Let's ask for everything we want before Xcel comes and tells us what they're going to do. And I prefer to keep it within local control within the joint development agreement as well, so that we can go directly to Xcel on behalf of our constituents instead of having to go through the Public Utility Commission. That's it. Thank you.
Thank you. Wayne Roan, your second question. St. Croix County has grown in population in recent decades, driven in large part by our proximity to the Twin Cities. Over the next decade, growth is expected to flatten and potentially decline. What are the impacts of this shift in population as it relates to the county?
Yeah, population trends have real serious implications for how counties plan their services and their infrastructure and their long-term investments. So for many years, St. Croix County experienced strong growth as people moved here, as I did, for the quality of life while working in the Twin Cities. If that growth begins to level off, and I think that's a question at this point in time, it changes the planning environment in several important ways. First, slower growth can ease some of the pressures we've seen on housing and transportation and land use. Rapid expansion often strains local infrastructure and public services, so a more stable population can allow communities to catch up, if you will, on planning and ensure development is thoughtful and sustainable. However, slower growth also creates financial and demographic challenges. Counties rely heavily on property taxes and economic activity to fund services such as public safety, health programs, and infrastructure maintenance. If population growth slows while service costs continue to rise, we will need to be especially careful in managing county budgets and prioritizing investments. Another important factor is demographic change. As many longtime residents age, demand for services in the county such as healthcare access, transportation options, and senior support will likely increase. My approach would be to focus on careful long-term planning, maintaining fiscal responsibility, supporting a healthy local economy, and ensuring that St. Croix County remains a place where people can live, work, and raise families.
Thank you. Ryan Shirley, your second question is, how would you address at the county level potential cuts to federal funding for healthcare and social services?
Okay. So this question, obviously you've heard people already talk about it a little bit. It is a loaded question. We don't know where the cuts are coming. It's a budget question is what it comes down to. And I said this in my opening. I own a commercial construction company. Budgeting I do all the time, almost every day. I take the budget part of our job very seriously. I scrutinize nearly every line item that we're talking about in the budget. And this is what that's going to take. We don't know where cuts are going to come from, but the biggest part is that those cuts may come, but the state has mandated us to do these services. And if these state mandated services are funding from the state on those mandated services are cut, then we still have to hold up our end of the bargain. And that's where the real issue is here. It's going back to the state and saying, we need to alleviate some of these mandated services if you're not going to provide funding for them. Because the reality is, we can grow as fast as we want, but if they cut all of those mandated services in health and human services, there's no way that the county budget can make up for it. So it really is a budgeting issue that we're talking about here. And there's a few of us on the board that really dig into these budgets every single cycle and every single year. And we're lucky that we have the county administrator that we have, and he does a fantastic job at helping us budget every year. But you have to think outside the box sometimes. 3 years ago, I think roughly 3 years ago, we had an issue with the sheriff's department finding enough officers. So myself, along with a couple of other board members, found funding in our existing budget at that time to bring on more officers when we needed it the most. And that's the kind of thinking that we need.
Thank you. Danielle McIntosh, your second question is, there are several concentrated animal feeding operations in St. Croix County. Many have applied to expand the number of livestock with the DNR. What is your position with regard to CAFOs?
Well, this is a complex topic with many stakeholders at multiple levels, including, multiple levels of government, community members, and the private companies that own those CAFOs. It really pulls at the tension between the heritage of our state, between what modern farming actually looks like, and the increasing urbanization of St. Croix County. Manure storage and manure spreading is something that we need to be concerned about as kind of a byproduct of those CAFOs. And the county, as we've talked about, has identified that groundwater nitrate contamination is coming from agriculture, and they've been able to differentiate that from other sources. So, to the county board's credit, they did recently amend an ordinance requiring written consent between landowners and people spreading manure. So that does help to increase transparency a bit, but that only helps identify the problem. I am far from an expert on this, and the groundwater contamination is only the most kind of relevant controversy surrounding CAFOs in St. Croix County right now. But I do think that it's important that we consider how many animals, how much waste, and by what methods we can manage all of that. in the different regions of the county, because they're probably different in different areas with the different structures and landscapes. So if we start to do that, then we can begin to work towards a solution that begins to continue to support our agricultural industry and also protect our communities.
Thank you. Rob Lillesby. Speaking of manure, the Land and Water Conservation staff have identified the primary source of contamination of ground and surface waters as excessive nitrates found in manure and chemicals used on cropland. What measures should the county take to inform and protect residents, and how would you encourage preservation of individuals' safe well water while providing farmland for agricultural use in this county?
That's a difficult question for me to cover. I mean, it seemed like, so you could look at it from so many different angles. First off, to making sure that the public is informed as to the causes of pollutants entering their water. What causes it? How can we minimize it? How can you safeguard against it? And along with that, figure roughly 50% of the water supplies for the citizens of St. Croix County are supplied through private wells. A lot of those wells are on farmland. Farmers have wells. This information has to get to them, and any way to minimize the impact of the nitrates has to be cherished by them, because they don't want their water polluted any more than anybody else does. So once that's done, then they know they play an active role in preventing it, because if they've got large livestock, or if it's a larger operation, they know they've got more manure and byproduct to get rid of. How can they minimize damaging the water tables? Where do they put this stuff? How do they get rid of it? I believe in the testing of wells, the 11 municipal wells I believe we have right now. That's the other 50% of the population. That needs to be tested on a regular basis. The private wells have to be tested on a regular basis. Once they detect that there's a contamination, then the proper authorities have to be brought in so that they can assess what the cause was. Was it runoff from somewhere? Where did it come from? How do we get rid of it? How do we correct the problem we have? That's about the best answer I could come up with off the top of my head.
Thank you. We have now gotten to our third round of questions, the last round. So Justin Terbeest, your last question, at least on camera anyway, is what can the county board do to assist local, that is township, village boards, city councils, as they seek to provide not only affordable housing, but a variety of housing options in their municipalities?
Yeah, I always think this is kind of an interesting predicament. When you look at communities, I don't think any people are going to go out and say a town that exists solely with bars is going to succeed, or a town built with nothing but Kmarts is going to work. We don't ask these questions as much when it comes to businesses unless they have a nuisance factor. We need a balance, we need a blend. Yet when it comes to housing, it becomes a much more hot button topic. No one wants affordable housing in their backyard. Yet you don't want a community made up of nothing but McMansions either. You have community A that has property values nearing $1 million a piece, community B 20 minutes away, leaning into having more affordable housing. How does that affect the makeup of that county, that larger area? Are people able to get to the work? Where's the draw? How's that balanced? So while it's not the county's job to overtake or run these local municipal rules, oversight is needed. Policy needs to be set as to how this is balanced and blended, or you'll have some communities that run away with one type of development and another with another, and it becomes imbalanced. That leads to problems with schools, keeping schools open, keeping schools funded. Same with roads, municipalities. How do you balance those resources when you can't even balance where people are living and working? So I do think those are issues that the county needs to not just be watching, but be aware of and keep its thumb on if needed. Thanks. Thank you, everyone, for your time tonight.
All right. Dani Erickson, your last question is, Xcel Energy has proposed a large solar facility on nearly 3,000 acres in central St. Croix County. Projects of this size are under the PUC of Wisconsin jurisdiction. What role do you feel the county should play in this project?
This is something I have been watching closely over the last year. Listening to the thoughtful and well-researched concerns of residents who would be directly affected by this project and by the leasing of private farmland for the development of the solar farm. I strongly believe in private property rights. At the same time, I think we have to really carefully consider the long-term impacts that such a large industrial energy project might have on surrounding property owners and the character of rural communities. Many residents have expressed concerns about the noise, the land use changes, and the loss of the rural landscape that first brought them out there to begin with. I also believe we have to be realistic about reliable energy sources in the Midwest. I think energy policy should prioritize reliability and affordability for families and businesses. And while projects of this size do ultimately fall under the PC Public Service Commission, at this point, I really would love to see more local control. The county still has an important role to play, I believe, and I think our county leaders should advocate strongly for local residents and do their best to make sure their voices are heard and work closely with the townships that have already stepped up to represent the concerns of their communities. At the end of the day, we must defend the constitutional rights of property owners while also respecting the rights of neighboring residents to enjoy their homes, their peace, and the rural beauty of St. Croix County. As a county board supervisor, I would be a strong advocate for residents and make sure their concerns are taken seriously in this process. Thank you.
Thank you. Mitch Rudebush, your third question is the growth question. St. Croix County has grown in population in recent decades based on our proximity to the Twin Cities, but over the next decade, growth is expected to flatten and potentially decline. What are the impacts of this shift in population growth as it relates to the county?
I'm sticking my notes on this one as well. And my wife's happy that I am, because, growth, it's been like 7.5% the last decade. I think it's going to continue. The research I did is going to continue. But it is a concern. So St. Croix County has grown rapidly, and it is a great place to live. If the growth slows, that can affect tax revenue, work availability, and long-term planning. It also gives us an opportunity to focus on strengthening our existing communities and their infrastructure. Thoughtful planning now can help ensure we remain a place where families want to move to, business want to invest in, and young people want to stay. Thank you.
Thank you. Paul Adams, your third question is, in the next year, the county will consider expansion of the jail, expected to cost $46 million. If passed, this would result in a bond issue to the taxpayers. What is your position on the proposed expansion of the jail and associated infrastructure improvements?
Thank you. As a member of the Public Protection and Judiciary Committee, one of our mandates annually is a jail inspection. I have done already 3 jail inspections, and I can tell you that jail is getting long in the tooth. We are spending tens of thousands of dollars annually for maintenance, upkeep, and to ensure that those who are in the jail do not have the opportunity to hurt themselves. We've spent tens of thousands of dollars to preclude the possibility of inmate hanging themselves, and these costs will continue to grow. A 30-year jail is a 30-year jail, and each 5-10 years, the costs just increase. In my discussions with the sheriff and his staff, now is the time to make this happen. We can't say who comes in, how long they stay, but we need to have the capability to bring those folks in, treat them humanely, and allow them to serve their time, have mental health services as needed, and then allow them to reintegrate back into society. This project, on my observation, is needed, and it also needs to be done as law enforcement indicates it needs to be done. Here's why. The present jail had a 10% cut in its cost factor. The Sallyport garage where vehicles come in was shortened by a couple of feet. Ambulances couldn't get in. So now that door is open and it takes more people to make that transfer. We need to get it done, and we need to get it done right. Thank you.
Thank you. Diana Delaney, your last question is, how would you address potential cuts at the county level to federal funding cuts for healthcare and social services?
Well, I think the saddest thing is that we don't have data on what funding is going to be cut, how much it's going to be, and which areas it's going to affect. I guess what I would say is probably for even prospective funding cuts, but we should all look to increasing the volunteer resources. There's certainly so many opportunities, and with our aging population, we have very, very talented people. And the ADRC has so many opportunities, and I think every issue that we're dealing with tonight is an issue that is being researched. And we don't have all the data on any of these topics, which is why a county board is so important, because we bring in the expert to provide good data, speak to the constituents, and find good answers. So, thank you.
Thank you. Paul Burning, your last question is the CAFOs question. Concentrated animal feeding operations have applied to expand the number of livestock with the DNR. What is your position with regard to those CAFOs or any new CAFOs in St. Croix County?
Yeah, so CAFOs are a byproduct of the family farm really disappearing. And if you look at the map that's on the wall there of all the county districts, I remember growing up, those little concentrated districts that are Hudson and the village of Baldwin and the city of New Richmond, those weren't like that. Looking at farmers being pinned against a wall with controlled prices for what they sell, I don't blame them for wanting to lease their land to an energy company to leave their family, money for the future. When it comes to CAFOs specifically, we need to continue to be mindful of what they're doing, right? And we have, I think it was 6 or 7 of them. There's one right off of 94, just 15 miles from us, 15 minutes from us, they come in every single dairy month. That's June, for those of you that don't know that. And they bring us cheese, and they bring us milk, and they bring us samples to our county board meeting. And I love cheese. I think I don't bleed. I actually cheese. That's how Wisconsin I feel like I am. But when it comes to CAFOs, they've done it. The community development department's done a really good job in creating a nutrient plan that is easy for the CAFOs to work with, yet is enforceable and thank you. I love that sign. That they're able to protect groundwater and make it so that it's not spilling over into the neighboring properties. So this is not my strongest issue, but I do know that with the disappearance of the family farm and the regulations that have been pushed down on those, CAFOs are almost a necessity to be able to produce real food. And we got to make sure that they're not polluting.
Right.
Thank you.
Thank you. And you answered that without using the word manure twice, so very good. All right, but speaking of manure, what are the chances that this question follows the CAFOS question for the second time? So Angie Bowes, your question is, the Land and Water Conservation staff have identified the primary source of contamination as being excessive nitrates found in the M word, manure, and chemicals used on cropland. What measures should the county take to inform and protect residents from the harmful effects of excessive nitrates? And how can you encourage preservation of safe well water and farmland for agricultural use in this county?
I want to pose this back as a question to all of you. Who here has a private well? Can you raise your hand? Okay. Who here has had your well water tested within the last 12 months? Okay. Less than half of you that raised your hand that had a private well have had it tested in the last 12 months. I'm guilty too. We moved in, we got busy, and this wasn't a thought. We live just outside of the old junker dump as well, which is now coming off of monitoring after 30 years. So this is now a really big issue to me to make sure that we have clean water. Nitrates are linked to cancer, and they're linked to a lot of other negative health impacts. And the first part of working with any of this stuff is knowing that it's a problem for you and your family. The county does have the community development committee has worked with several other county places to work through the well water testing. Knowledge is power, and so I believe that is something we really need to advocate for, is for everyone to get their well water tested and to see how it's changing over time. One of the other things I really loved about all of these questions is they are not just soundbite solutions, right? It's going to take a lot of working together at the county level, working with all of the constituents, working with the townships and the different municipalities to start solving these problems together. And in this case, also, I think we can work on that nutrition management planning as well with the CAFOs to start understanding how those are affecting where the manure is going, the leaking pipes that it has, and how it's affecting groundwater, not just locally to those places, but further down into St. Croix County. And I hope you all, if you're in my district, come talk to me afterwards. I'm much better in person than I am as a public speaker, so thank you.
All right, thank you. All right, we're on the home stretch here. Wayne Roan, your last question. What can the county board do to assist local municipalities as they seek to provide not only affordable housing, but a variety of housing options?
So housing is an issue affecting communities across the country, not just in St. Croix County. As our population demographic changes and our economy evolves, we need a wider range of housing options so that young families, working professionals, and seniors can all find places to live in the communities they care about. From my perspective, the county board's role is not to dictate local development decisions, but to support municipalities with tools, coordination, and good information. One of the most valuable things the county can do is provide strong planning support and data. Many smaller towns and villages have limited staff capacity, and county-level planning resources can help them better understand housing demand, demographic trends, and infrastructure needs. Good data allows local leaders to make informed decisions about zoning, density, and development patterns. The county can also play a role in coordinating regional solutions. Housing markets do not stop at municipal boundaries, and regional collaboration can help communities share best practices and align infrastructure investments such as transportation, utilities, and broadband that support housing growth. Finally, we should look at ways to encourage a mix of housing types, starter homes, workforce housing, townhomes, and senior housing, so residents can remain in their communities throughout the different stages of life. Thoughtful planning today will help ensure St. Croix County remains a welcoming and economically vibrant place to live no matter what phase of life you're in. And since I haven't got my card yet, I just want to say we're very honored tonight to have my predecessor here, longtime public servant for St. Croix County from District 10, Dave Ostis. I hope you will all do what I will do after and go up to Dave and thank him for his service.
All right, thank you. Ryan Shirley, your last question is the growth question. We all know St. Croix County has grown in recent decades, but over the next decade, growth is expected to flatten and potentially decline. What are the impacts of this shift in population growth as it relates to the county?
I'm disappointed I didn't get the Xcel question. I figured I would get it. But there's hours and hours of community development. You can see my answers to that. The St. Croix County growing in population, if that flattens out, which I don't believe that it will to the extent that the models are showing, The models also showed us that we were going to get to 100,000 residents in St. Croix County by 2032. It happened at the end of 2025. We continue to grow. We continue to grow because of the policies that we're making here in St. Croix County, making this county more attractive for families and businesses to move to. And with our proximity to Minnesota, that's why we're growing the way we are. If you look at the map of Wisconsin, the two or three counties that are growing the most are on the Illinois border and us. And that's done for a reason, because Illinois has the bad policies that they're creating that's causing businesses and residents to move north. Same with Minnesota. And we need to cash in on that. We have a great area that we all love, and we need to make sure that we have it affordable and with lower taxes, working on budgets like I talked about earlier. But if it does happen to drop, it comes down to budgeting, like I talked about in my last question. I think that is the most important thing as you look forward, is even if that growth curve drops a little bit, in St. Croix County right now, we rely on that net new construction a lot for our budgeting. I could talk about this for probably an hour, but I only have 15 seconds. So if anybody wants to hear more about that, I would be happy to talk about that after this. Thank you.
Thank you. Danielle McIntosh. In the next year, the county's going to consider expansion of the jail and other infrastructure projects expected to cost $46 million. If passed, that would result in a bond issue to the taxpayers. What is your position on the proposed expansion of the jail and other improvements?
I found this question particularly difficult to find information about. I did find the July meeting of the whole from the county board, in which the sheriff's office explained the need for this expansion. Most of the inmates in the St. Croix County Jail are there for less than 4 days, and part of the expansion would be to create a holding area, separate holding area, to house those people during the brief time. I'm kind of pro anything that helps with efficiency, to help nonviolent, low-risk inmates stay out of jail, get back to their jobs, and keep paying taxes. Another factor in the project was also in response to, it sounds like, increased regulations by the state to protect the inmates. I think we heard a little bit about that, but how we can keep people safe while they're in jail. And currently it sounds like a game of Tetris, where they kind of have to figure out who can go where and what's happening and how do we keep everybody safe. And I'm pro-human, so I'm pro-basic living conditions and basic safety in jail, right? That needs to be a thing that happens. So it sounds like there's something that has to happen. Especially sounds like the population is rising in the jail and we're approaching maximum capacity. But I do think it's concerning that we have the same number of people in jail as does Washington County on the other side of the river, and they have 3 times the population that we do. So I think we need to look really carefully at who is in our jail, why are they in our jail, and is there something that we can be doing with that taxpayer money that would better serve our community to keep people out of jail in that time? Thanks.
All right, thank you. All right, last but not least, Rob Lillersby, you have the question that is the shortest. How would you address, at the county level, potential cuts to federal funding for healthcare and social services?
Well, as other people have said, we don't know what those federal cuts might amount to, although they're likely going to happen. The fact is, healthcare and social services are very important things that are offered in any county. We've got, I've got a background in health services, so it means a lot to me that people are provided services when necessary. It kind of a frustrating thing for me is that some of the people that are incarcerated probably need mental health services. If there are federal cuts to mental health services, they're going to be in the criminal justice system because there's no place to put them. That just seems like a crime. Anyway, there are different ways. We could look at restructuring where allocations go to be able to subsidize any losses on the federal level. That means something else has to give. That means something else has to go unfunded or have less funding. I think we could petition the state to offset whatever federal cuts are made by emphasizing, hey, we're the other side of the state. Maybe pay attention to us and help us out on this. So we could also reallocate tax dollars and revenues, maybe increase taxes on sin taxes such as alcohol or tobacco. That's not going to be a huge amount of money because we already tax the devil out of that stuff. It's going to be a tough thing to deal with, to not have to cut services that are necessary if we have strong federal cuts made. If they gut us, we're going to have to deal with it. It's going to be a nasty thing to consider.
Okay. All right, with that, that concludes our group question and answer session, and I want to thank everyone for their patience. And I just read the questions, I didn't write them, but the fact that, you know, there were manure questions involved, I am a former farm boy, and I shoveled a lot of it as a kid. And I don't think, though, that that's necessarily the skill set that qualified me for this job. But I want to thank everyone for coming, and I encourage everyone to stay, talk to the folks. You can see signs around the room where we've asked folks to spread out. And I think, Beth, you've got some more instruction on that. So anyway, again, thank you, everyone. Thank you for your play. Let's give the candidates a round.
On behalf of the league, I just want to thank you all again for coming. I learned so much from all of you, and I appreciate you being here and being so forthright, and it really was a gratifying evening for all of us. This is what democracy looks like.